Hello, I'm Professor Alan Dupont from the Lowy Institute. There is no longer much doubt that we are facing a sustained period of climate change, largely fueled by modern lifestyles, which is unprecedented in human history in terms of its magnitude and probable consequences. A telling survey of the scientific literature on climate change found that of 928 peer-reviewed articles published between 1993 and 2003, none disagreed with the scientific consensus that climate change is human-induced. Sea levels have risen by around 10 centimetres globally over the past 55 years, essentially because of the thermal expansion of water and the melting of terrestrial snow and ice. Temperatures have increased 0.3 degrees Celsius since 1979, which is the highest rate of warming since the beginning of instrumental temperature measurement. The concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by 2030 will be 60% higher than pre-industrial times. As a result, we are likely to see more desiccating droughts, intense storms, natural disasters and sea level rise. There is broad scientific agreement that glaciers around the world and the polar ice caps are melting at accelerating rates, and seas are continuing to warm and expand. The US National Snow and Ice Data Center has concluded that greenhouse gases are at least partially responsible for the shrinking of the Arctic ice cap, which will disappear entirely by 2060 at present rates of melt. Seas are expected to rise by around half a metre this century. But if the Greenland ice cap were to melt, sea level rise could be as high as 7 metres. This would have serious implications for many of the world's major cities, causing serious flooding and population displacements likely to run into the tens of millions. It would also result in the inundation of fertile coastal areas, which produce much of the world's food, while some low-lying countries would disappear entirely. If global mean temperature rises can be contained to around 2 degrees Celsius, an increase of this order can be managed without undue risk to international security. But confidence in this judgment dips sharply once the rise exceeds 2 degrees Celsius. Unfortunately, it seems very likely that this de facto temperature ceiling will be breached. Sir David King, the UK Chief Scientist, has warned that temperatures will probably rise by at least 3 degrees Celsius this century, which will cause severe droughts, spread disease, put 400 million people at risk from hunger, and jeopardise water supplies for up to 3 billion people. In a world populated by 6.5 billion people and with natural resources already stretched, sudden deviations from global or regional weather norms could have profound consequences for international security. There will almost certainly be an upsurge in destabilising population movements within and across national borders. By 2050, we can expect to see up to 150 million environmental refugees, and climate change will add to the pressure on the world's already stressed resource base. But the real risk is that climate change could push the planet past an environmental tipping point from which there will be no winners. History has shown that societies usually collapse because of the combined effects of resource depletion and climate change, what Thomas Homer Dixon calls synchronous failure. It is abundantly clear that Australia cannot quarantine itself from these consequences, because climate change, by definition, is a global problem. Glacial melt and the polar ice cap will raise the seas around Australia as much as Europe and North America. And fossil fuel emissions in China and India will affect our climate as well as theirs. All businesses will be adversely affected by climate change in some way, but especially those involved in insurance, agriculture, water supply, energy, engineering, transport and real estate. On the other hand, commercial opportunities exist to develop new technologies and strategies for adapting to a warmer, stormier and probably drier world.